Welcome back to MVM. Today I've got a brand new game set up on the table. This is Darkest Doom. This is a competitive sandbox role-playing game set in a world of, now you guessed it, darkness and doom. In this game, the world of Batel has been subjugated by darkness. It all comes from an evil entity called Mosh. This evil entity was captured and imprisoned in a monolith inside this mountain. This is Winter Mountain. And this is actually a set piece that's going to be sitting out here in the center of the table. There was a high priestess, Elida, who was in charge of keeping that darkness at bay. Well, surprise, surprise, that darkness did manage to escape. It actually corrupted the priestess and is now spreading out into the world, trying to corrupt the world as well. Your job as one of the 4 heroes of Batel is to, potentially fight back against that darkness. There are some alternate win conditions that maybe have you switching sides, but I'll talk about that. But in general, you are trying to fight back the darkness in the form of these dark filament tokens that can be spread out across the board, and some of these larger monster figures that will be permeating the board and spreading darkness out with them. Now, I do have a game already set up in front of me here with all 4 champions, and you'll note a few things with each champion. For one, they all start in one of the 4 corner spaces of the board. This is their blood temple. Each one of these is going to have a player board that's dual layered, that's going to have a lot of space for their different tokens. This is where the RPG element of the game is going to come into play. Each one of these characters has different stats which determine things like their health value, their attack value, the amount of mana they have, and everyone's going to have a special ability. You're also going to be able to collect items and things like that for your character. Each player is going to start with a number of items that you can gain from one of these 3 stacks, which represent the 3 different types of items you can gain, whether it's like weapons and armor, traps that you can set, or spells that you can cast. Now, some of these characters are going to be better at some of these things than others. Some are going to want to have weapons and armor, some are going to be better with spells than traps. It's all based on your stats, because each of these things is going to tell you on it what you're going to use. But you're going to draw some of these at the start of the game, and you're also going to draw a quest card. All of this is going to be placed in front of you. At the start of the game, you're going to be setting all of your stats and attributes, taking some trap tokens, some quest location tokens, and things like that. One thing that's really neat is you're actually getting to set your stats as far as what you want to improve upon. You've got these little clear tokens that you can place on your player board at the start of the game, and you're effectively choosing which of your 4 stats you want to level up if you complete a quest. You're also deciding which type of relic you might receive. There are 3 types of relics you can capture in this game. You have your urns, you have your stones, and you have your lanterns. These are used for very different things in the game, and they allow you to interact with the world in a very different way. They're also potentially used for these very different in-game conditions. Everyone has a quest card, like I said, that you're going to draw, and this is going to kind of determine that quest that you can go on. If you complete that quest, that's when you get to do your level up, you get to get your specific items. So the items that you're collecting are not tied to the quest. You get to decide what you're looking for, which is kind of neat and actually gives you a little bit of option when it comes to this game. Now, what you're actually doing on a turn is effectively spending action points. You'll notice that this map is divided into several different zones, and each one of these zones is some kind of terrain that has some kind of special thing you can do there. So every time you move into a new space, you're going to be able to evaluate it to see if you can take the action of that zone. You're also going to evaluate if you're going to be in combat, because that's another big part of the game. You're able to go into combat with other players. You're also able to go into combat with some of the monsters, that darkness that might be moving around the board. All of this is handled via dice, so you are rolling dice looking for special hits when it comes to combat. However, I will say, for somebody that doesn't like rolling a lot of dice, there is a lot of different mitigation. You can spend some of your coins to do mitigation. You can also discard some of your items from your hand. Every item card has a little symbol on top. You can actually discard that item instead of playing it to set one of your dice. So you can almost get a guaranteed success of whatever you're looking for if you have that item. You're also going to have the mountain in the center and these different citadels. These citadels you can actually interact with just like you'd interact with the icons on the items. These citadels you can actually create alliances with, and you're actually going to get some little citadel tokens in your player color that you can place on these citadels to show that you've made an alliance with them, which is going to unlock some special abilities. So you can actually use some special actions that are tied into that citadel. So if you can't already tell, there's a lot you can do on your turn. This goes into that sandbox. So you're either going to be looking to complete a quest, looking maybe to fight people to earn some fame points, looking to fight monsters to kind of push back that darkness, or you're trying to go up some of these tracks over here. And there are a few different tracks. First of all, there's the player order track, which is going to change every turn and determine who is first in player order. Then there's the Citadel Alliance track. This is where you're going to be gaining points with these different citadels. And you'll notice each player has a figure here. This is an acolyte. If you can get your alliance up that high on that track, you'll unlock this figure. This figure comes down to your blood temple and effectively comes over here and is going to let you do rituals. So you'll actually be able to spend this character to do rituals on your ritual card, giving you, of course, more options of things to do on your turn. Then down below you have the daily fame track. This is just a record of how well you're doing in that day. There are 9 days in the game. Every day you're trying to do the best you can to go up this fame track. And you're getting that fame from a wide variety of things. Fighting, quests, getting some certain cards that you can turn in for fame. So really you're just trying to go up that fame track every day because you want to be the one at the top so you can get some of these fame reward cards. And these daily fame reward cards are really good. They're going to give you bonuses. You'll get to choose from 2, and they have a lot of different effects that are going to help you lead in the game. Now, when it comes to completing quests, every quest is going to have on it some kind of icons and some kind of special text, as well as a space that shows you where on the board you want to go to complete your quest. You're going to take your quest marker, you're going to place it on that particular space, and that tells you where you want to go. Now, some of these quests are actually linked. You'll have a green symbol maybe on some. That means your next quest will be a red quest. You're also going to be able to place out these quest reward tokens on boards, which is where players can go to get special abilities. So, a lot that you can do on your turn, and you're actually getting kind of 2 turns every phase. So let me talk about that for a second. There are 9 rounds in the game marked by these Priestess tokens. This kind of is a monitor of the Priestess's power, how well she is doing holding out against that darkness. So every day as this turn moves on, you're going to take one of these priest tokens and put them in this bag. This bag is filled with targets that will target every player, plus potentially those priestess symbols. This is what the monsters are going to draw from every turn to determine who their target is. As more of those priestess tokens get in here, there's the possibility that those will be drawn instead, which is actually going to allow these monsters to level up into bigger versions of the monsters, which is pretty bad. You don't want that to happen, but the later you go in the game, the higher chance that one of those tokens is going to be drawn and their monsters are going to level up. Above that, you're going to see the Darkest Doom tracker, and that's kind of where the name of the game comes from. As you roll the dice, some of the symbols that pop up are going to relate back to that Darkest Doom tracker, and you're actually going to be moving this token around in a circle. That's kind of like the Moon token, the Darkest Doom token that goes around, and you're going to trigger things. Most of these things are very bad. They're going to be spawning out monsters. They're going to be spawning out more of these filament tokens, possibly even spreading them out to all of the different citadels across the board. If that wasn't bad enough, they might also be placing pools of darkness out on the board as well, which will have negative effects, and they can have you draw contamination cards, which are going to give you some kind of negative effect over the course of the game. So you'll have to deal with those condition cards at some point. All of this is handled every time you move, whether you move into one of those dark pools, a quest spot, a monster spot, or a space that triggers an ability. And like I said, there are a lot of these abilities, and each place that you can go to can do some crazy things. You can interact with the temples, you can interact with the citadels, you can go interact with the mountain, which I'll talk about at the end. You can even go into the lake and make a deal with the Lady of the Lake, which seems kind of crazy. There's this Lady of the Lake card here, the Lake Ghost, that's going to allow you to actually summon the lake ghost by spending your lanterns. You can actually effectively control the Lady of the Lake by placing your token in there and effectively use that to move around the board to gain a lot of power and hurt your opponents. And then there are different spaces called Black Lodges, and you'll see these spaces on the board. These are effectively teleporters. These are going to allow you to move around the board very quickly, get from one side of the board to the other, but every time you do, you have to draw one of these encounter cards for traveling. And some of these can be very negative. They can cause you to draw more of those contamination cards, add darkness out, lose items, things like that. So taking those teleporting paths is dangerous. After everyone has taken their turn, what would be considered the day phase of the game, then you move on to the night phase. That's bad. That's when all the monsters are going to get to act. And they're going to get to act via these cards. You have event cards and event location cards. So you're effectively flipping one from each pile, and it's going to tell you what happens, and it's going to tell you where it happens. So the event card might reference the map. It might tell you to put filament out, these dark filament tokens out on the board. Or it might tell you to spawn monsters, move monsters, and things like that. Monsters are always going to draw from that target bag like I referenced earlier. So when a monster does go to attack somebody, you're going to look and you're going to see a player icon, either the player itself or their temple, and the monster's going to move towards that and try to attack it or spread the darkness and corruption to that area. If they can't get to that one particular player, but they pass another player along the way, they might be fighting that player. Fighting, like I said, is done with your items, your dice, all of your cards, just like when you're fighting a player or when you initiate a fight on your turn. It's exactly the same. The monster can come in and fight you. If you die, don't worry. Simply respawn back at your starting blood temple. So you're pretty safe. I mean, you're never going to get eliminated in the game except for one way. So let me talk about everything you're doing. For one, you're trying to withstand 9 days. The whole idea here is that the Priestess is actually kind of rewinding time backwards for these 9 days. So by the end of the 9th day, you've gone back to when the darkness was contained. It's kind of a cool premise. But at the end of that, whoever has done the best job fighting off the darkness for the past 9 days, for it to all get sucked up, if you have the most fame at that point, you are declared the leader now. Like you're the knight of this Priestess, and you gain all the glory, you win the game. Another way the game can end is if the darkness has completely surrounded by placing 3 of these tokens on every one of the temples and citadels. If that happens, the game is over and the darkness wins, everyone loses. However, I did talk about a way to change sides. Much like you can summon that lake ghost and actually kind of become that lake ghost, one player can become the leader of the hunt. And this is a contamination card that's hidden within them. If you draw that card, you can choose by turning in some of your relics to become the leader of the hunt. If that's the case, you literally put your token inside that mini, and now you are considered the leader of the hunt. You are still a player character, but you are on the darkness side. If you get to the 9th day and Shadow wins, effectively you win. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit binary there. So it's not just light or darkness. But there are 2 other ways to win. And that is to come to the mountain here in the center and do one of 2 actions. You can either come to the monolith and turn in your stones, which you've been collecting, those relics. You can turn those in to unleash Bosch directly. You effectively break the monolith, you flood the world with darkness, and you win. But everyone else loses. So in that case, it doesn't go to 9 rounds. It doesn't matter what your fame is. You've just won. So if one player is trying to do that, if they're collecting all those relics to try to wake up Bosch, then other players might want to try to stop them. The other way you can win is to come up onto this mountain and fight the darkness within the Priestess. So if you come up here, you're actually going to be battling against that darkness that's controlling her. It is a very difficult battle. But if you can win that, if you can cleanse her, then that ends the game immediately. The good side wins, but effectively you just won. So again, it doesn't matter what your fame was there. It just matters that you were the one that defeated the darkness, brought your High Priestess back, and cleansed the land. So, lots going on here. A lot of different ways to approach this game and the different gameplay. The RPG elements of making your characters very different from each other, plus the direction you want to go with which citadels you want to take, if you want to ally with those certain citadels, if you're going to be taking a lot of actions from the blood temples, the quests you can go on. I mean, there is just a wide variety of actions to take in this sandbox, but ultimately it's going to end in one of those things happening, and the game can take a varied amount of time based on which direction these players want to go, how much infighting there is between the players, because at the end of the day, this is a competitive game. So there is always still that level of competition that kind of goes through the entire game. Now, there's a lot more going on in this game than I can possibly describe as far as all the rules go, the way that traps work, the way that the Priestess works, and the monster upgrades. I mean, you'd be looking at quite a long video, but that's kind of an overview of all the things that are happening in this game and all the way that these different mechanics kind of overlap and work together to bring you what I consider to be a very unique gameplay experience with a lot of moving parts, a lot of options, and a lot of really cool things you can do on your turn. So that is Darkest Doom. Take a look at their crowdfunding page. You can see maybe in a lot more detail, or even download a rule book. There's a lot of really cool flavor into this game that you can see. All of the characters have their own backstories. There's a whole comic that kind of sets up what's happening in the world. So it's all very thematic and really draws you into the story of the game. But yeah, I think you can see a lot of that on their campaign page as well. And maybe you'll break down some of these things, show you some more items and things that I just couldn't show you in the video today. But if you do have any comments, please let me know below. Let me know which of those endings you'd probably do. I know there are some players out there that would be the one to become the leader of the hunt and fight with the darkness. I guarantee I will see some players do that. So thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you have a pretty good understanding of Darkest Doom. Thank you so much for watching, and until I see you again, keep having fun at the table.
Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.